I never know where and how to start when we come to Bailey Avenue. But let me begin this program by telling you this is Chapter 3 in the Ron Venne saga. We've been here twice before, and I told Calvin this morning, we may grow old here, coming back time after time, because the man is so fascinating, and his love of history parallels our love of history, only he can do more about it than we can. We bring our cameras to Ron Venne's house at 72 Bailey Avenue. This is Chapter 3 in the current series in the Ron Venne story, and we're recording it on tape for you to see on February 8th, 2000, on a fairly sunny but very cold January morning, where temperatures in the country were anywhere from 10 below to 20 below, as we heard on radios and TVs early today. The reason we're here, in case you're viewing this program for the first time, is because Ron Venne has done so many interesting things in this community. The project that brings us back is photographs. 5 years ago, right, Ron?
Right.
5 years ago, in 1995, Ron got the idea that he'd like to collect some old photographs, which he did. Now you're up to how many?
938.
I told everybody 988.
Oh.
You better get about 50 more of those.
I will.
And he looked at these old photographs from various locations, from books, bookshops, attics,
Yeah. Old directories.
wherever it might be.
Yeah, where you might find like old photographs or high school yearbooks or other old books like in the city and areas like that. Find old photographs, what you can find, and just go take them today to see, how much did it change since the way they used to look back then.
That's the point. Ron researches these old photographs, find out what community they're taken in, what street they're taken in. Many of them don't have anything written on the back.
No.
You just have to look at it and figure it out. And he's done that how many times?
Quite a few.
Hundreds,
Hundreds.
hundreds and hundreds. As you can tell by the stacks of pictures we have in books, he goes back and stands where the photographer stood. Sometimes 120, 125 years ago,
Yeah.
and takes the picture. Does it make you feel, what does it make you feel like when you're standing there taking that picture? Can you imagine what it must have been like?
I don't know, a little bit. You try to put yourself in that time. Like, what was it like? Like how much traffic was there going by, if anybody was walking by, or, just to see what other people would think back then, what you're doing now,
All of us would love to get into a time machine, wouldn't we? We'd love
sometime
to be able to go back in time without being an active participant, because we wouldn't want to change history.
No.
But we'd just like to be there as a fly on the wall to watch what happened, huh?
Yeah. Let's see what it was like.
Well, I'll tell you what. Through your expert photography and through the lens of Calvin Castine's camera, we're able to see what it was like. And I find in looking at this photographs that I want to spend a lot of time on every one. And it's not fair to our viewers, because today people live at a much faster pace than my brain likes to go.
Yeah.
I like to look at, see what kind of a bird that was sitting on that post, and how was that flag draped over the front of that building, and wow, that looks like my grandfather over there standing in front of that drugstore, and things like that. We'll do it at a fairly leisurely pace, but there is so much ground to cover that we will literally be here for the rest of our lives if we did it at the pace we'd like to go at. Before we start our formal look at these photographs again to see what Ron Venne has done now, he brought us out this delightful old camera. Now, what's the story behind this camera? I feel like the Antiques Roadshow.
Oh.
What can you tell me about the history of this camera?
Well, I don't know much history. I just went to help a lady go clean out her aunt's attic when she died.
Where was this?
Up in Moores, New York. So I was up there going through stuff. So she said, if anything that I might want, take it. So she gave me this because she didn't know what it was. So then when I came home, I opened it up. But And I noticed it looked like a box of some sort. So then I found out how you opened it, and I found out it's an old camera from way back.
This guy is so clever at making things that I'm sure it didn't take you long to figure out how to open this camera. It has a sliding bellows, and I should point out that the bellows is perfectly intact.
Yep.
This camera looks like if you could find film for it, it would take pictures today.
Yep.
And it's got the little, you've seen these little plungers, huh? So you can stand to one side and push it and snap a picture. I have no idea what kind of camera it is. I'm not an expert on cameras. I do know that it's an absolutely beautiful shape. And someday, maybe you can figure out how to get in contact with somebody who still makes film like this and take the picture. Now, this camera is significant for the purposes of our little corner program today because you believe that it took some of the pictures we showed our viewers last time.
Yeah.
Of what area?
Keysville, some of Bridge Street, and different locations around the city. Champlain Monument at that time. And some of the, like I said, some in Keysville, like the old stone bridge, the pedestrian bridge in Keysville. There's people walking on there, and Main Street in Keysville with a guy standing out in front. When the trees used to be there, but they're all gone now.
So isn't that's great? Because when you watch the Antiques Roadshow, and you bring something beautiful like this old camera on, and you've got a little bit of background and some papers and stuff that say, here's the photographs that person took with this camera in 1907 or whenever this camera was made. I have no idea. No idea what years it would date to, but early 1900s, we're pretty sure. Photography was still growing, but very much in existence, having started way back in the before the middle part of the 19th century. That brings us to another topic. The first few times we've been just grabbing a stack of pictures and going through them because Ron has meticulously placed every one of these photographs in a plastic sleeve. How did you get them the same size?
What, the sleeves?
No, the pictures. Now these two pictures are almost exactly the same size. How do you do that?
Well, I made copies of them with my other camera. And I had my pictures processed in 5x7s.
Oh, simple as that, huh?
Yeah.
And once you get very good with computers, you can make them any size you want to, right?
Yeah, any size.
Okay, here's the topic we're apparently covering today. Churches and schools, right? Are we covering just the city or what?
Well, probably mostly around the city.
Okay, mostly around the city of Plattsburgh.
And probably some outside areas. Yeah.
The format is for us to pick the picture up and show you the before and talk about it, and then show you the after and talk about it, and see what we've got and what we've got. Churches are landmarks in most communities.
Yeah.
Sometimes if they have a high enough spire or steeple, we can see that church steeple as we're driving into town, right?
Yeah, right.
And they've been that way for a long time because very often the churches in a community are the oldest buildings there.
Yeah.
Because very often when people settle a community, the first thing they do is build a church. And they put a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
And we have, we've seen some of the beautiful cathedrals around the world, but we have some mighty beautiful churches in and around Clinton County, don't we?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, what's the first one, my friend?
St. Peter's Church.
And this is located where?
112 Canilla Street in North Catherine. Was organized in 1853.
So we're talking in another 3 years, it'll be 150 years old, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay. And now, that's the picture that was taken. We don't know when that picture was taken, do we?
No, I don't know. I couldn't find a date.
But probably in the early part of the century. Once again, most of the trees are gone because we're going to show you not a brand new picture. This one was taken, when, a couple years ago, a few years ago?
Yeah, a couple years ago.
And the reason we want to mention that is twofold. Number one, you can notice the trees are gone. Number two, there is something new that's been added within the last year at St. Peter's Church. What's that, Ron?
New copper roof.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Did you find it interesting to watch that happening?
Yeah, when I go by, when I go past, I stop and look for a while and see how they're doing.
I was guessing that must be quite a job to get the copper on all those little steeple parts.
Yeah, because they did the steeple part first, then they worked their way down. Now they're just finishing up the back.
It's really quite beautiful, and it's interesting to see how copper weathers, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got a brownish color.
It was spectacular when they first finished it.
Yeah.
Well, they're not quite. Are they finished now?
I think so.
Just about finished now, yeah.
They're trying to take down some of the scaffolding.
It was spectacular when the sun would hit it, and you'd be driving into town. It glommed onto your attention immediately because it was so bright. So that's very interesting. That's St. Peter's Church. And on the flip side, as they say, in the radio business, what do we got over here, my friend?
St. John's Church, located at the corner of Broad and Oak Street.
We're not going to spend a great deal of time talking about the difference between the French and Irish congregations in Plattsburgh and their history, but it is a very interesting study for any of our viewers who want to get into it. And St. John's Church, Broad and Oak Street, we don't know when that church was originally established, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of our viewers do. It's amazing to us how much the church looks the same, but how different all the traffic is and the trees and the signs across the road. But you did get you must have stood in pretty much the same spot, huh?
Well, that's what I try to get. So.
It's very difficult, I'm sure, to get in exactly the same spot. But you said the trick is to, how do you do that? Take the picture with you, the old picture.
Yeah, I take the old one with me, then try to get in the same spot from the photograph, so I can make a duplicate as whoever took it before.
And you've been rather successful at this. I'm not certain, I would like to think that we're very creative here in the North Country and that we do things first, and even when we don't do them first, we do them better. And I don't know how many people have done this extensive a project in their hometowns with before and after pictures, but I haven't seen too many. Have you, Calvin? Not too many. Once in a while, one picture before and after, but not as a regular project. Maybe we can get this guy on national television somehow, huh? Because it's a good thing you've done. All right, now let's look at whoa, that's a little bit faded. That picture was probably taken in the winter time. Maybe we can get both of them, Calvin, and as is our custom when we show two pictures on opposite pages here. Okay, what do we got here?
First Presbyterian Church, located on Brickhouse Street in Marion.
It's a little bit faded.
Yeah.
Because it's a rather ancient photograph. It's possible to tell when the picture was taken, but it was, at least you've taken both of these at roughly the same time of the year.
Yeah.
And I doubt if you've got both pictures in there now, don't you? Okay. The one on the right, of course, is the way it looks today. There was a fence around it, right? Back in the old days.
Yeah, there's a fence.
And perhaps some of the attached buildings on the right-hand side, or the buildings over there to the right, are different. It's impossible to tell. The chimney is still there. And what's this on the roof, these white things on the roof on the left side? Can you tell?
I don't know. I can't make them out.
I can't tell either, because there's a pattern on the roof here in the new picture. Now, there's a clock here now, right?
Yeah, there's a clock here.
And you know my fascination with time. I went crazy over this beautiful clock that Ron's got in their living room, because his dad was a clock fixer and maker, tinkerer. So I watch that clock every day when I go to work to make sure it's set on time. And generally it's pretty close. Every once in a while it'll be out of commission for a few days or a week, and I just wonder whose job it is to go up in there and change the clock, or I don't know if it's electronic now or what. But maybe that's a project. If Calvin takes a deep breath and brings an inhaler someday, maybe we'll climb up the ladder to get up in that steeple and see who fixes the clock. But anyway, I can't tell. Was there a clock there originally The circles are
I
there.
think so. Circles
And
are
it
there.
probably was a clock way back when. Maybe we can find out a little bit of the history of those. Okay, and next, let me see if I can do it right this time. This would be what church?
Plattsburgh Baptist Church. Look at Oak and Court Street.
Oak and Court Streets. I drive by it every single day of my life going to work. It was organized when?
I'll have to look here.
May 16th,
Yeah, May 16th,
18.
78.
Now, that church is way, way different. It
Yeah.
probably is not the same building
No,
at
'cause
all,
It burnt down, I think, in 1931. Then they rebuilt it.
and rebuilt it. So, but on the same spot,
Same
on the
spot.
same corner. And I'm sure that many of our viewers will have anecdotes connected with these pictures, and we'd like to hear about them, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So that you can, if they've got some stories, they can write them down. You could put typewritten pages in between connected with these buildings, and that would just make the story even more delicious. While we have an opportunity, even though I told you we may be tied up here at Ron Venne's house on Bailey Avenue for the next 20 years, we are always looking for new subject matter for the program called Our Little Corner. We think it's a fascinating and interesting idea to bring people inside homes and businesses, on streets and street corners and top of mountains and wherever our camera might take us, so we can let people know what life is like in the year 1999 or the year 2000, and that's the new year that we're into now. So give Calvin a ring, Hometown Cable. The number is
298 home.
298 home at any time, and just let us know. And by the way, the program survives by a little bit of underwriting. So if individuals or businesses want to throw a bone our way and get their names scrolled in the beginning and end of the program to be attached with what we think is a worthwhile program, a very necessary program, that would help to sustain the show. And once again, contact Calvin and he can arrange it. Okay, that's the Baptist Church.
Okay.
Now where are we going?
Trinity Protestant. I don't know, that's cool. I can't
Episcopal
pronounce-
Church.
Episcopal Church.
Yeah, the Trinity Church, as we call it,
Yeah.
right? We leave out the Protestant Episcopal
Oh.
most of the time and
Oh.
call it the Trinity
Trinity.
Church. And appropriately, it's located at 18 Trinity Square. Now, what can you tell me? Obviously, there's something missing in the new part.
Yeah, the steeple's gone.
I wonder what happened.
I don't know either. I mean,
I wonder when and what happened. It is a wonderful old church. It is also steeped in North Country history.
Yeah.
And what? All right, Calvin, I'm going to test your memory. What Christmas carol was penned there? What?
Three kings of Orient are.
He's going to sing it. We three kings of Orient are. So we're on the world map for having had a Christmas carol penned here at the Trinity Episcopal Church. There is a lot of history. It looks like the same. I remember when they redid the front steps. Remember, they repaired the front steps and did a lot of work there. The church is essentially the same, except that now it has above the door. It has 3 windows, right, which weren't
Right.
there originally.
yeah.
3 large windows, and there's been a top built on after the original spire
Yeah.
was taken down, and that was really quite beautiful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I can't imagine why they changed it, but once again, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if there are viewers out there who know, and we'd love to hear from you. I think we've accomplished something if we generate comment on
Yeah.
what we do from people who say, yeah, I remember that, the way it looked then. Well, let's flip it over and take a look at this top photograph. What do we got?
St. Peter's School, or they call it the Green School. It's
It was light green in color
light green in color, located on North Catherine Street. Now it's a parking lot.
for St. Peter's Church.
Yeah, right next to St. Peter's Church.
But it was really quite an impressive building. And it says 1906 on the top. And that's too bad that that building was ultimately torn down, probably to make way for the parking lot and the new St. Peter's School across the street.
Yeah.
A new, modern, low building. Now, let's take a look at what the parking lot looks like today so you can know where it went. We've all seen, I'm sure they didn't demolish it like some of those spectacular videos we've seen on television where somebody goes in there and places all the dynamite charges and they push the button and the whole thing crumbles down. But that was an impressive edifice, and it's kind of too bad that it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, let's turn the page. Oh, wow. It's another one I haven't seen before. We're going from a church to a playground.
Yeah.
What do we got here?
Hamilton Street School, located on Hamilton Street. Now it's a playground, where the school used to be.
All right, let me take a look at that. That's quite a building, and I can't tell what it says. Does it say? It doesn't say Hamilton Street on the front there. Can anybody read what that says? I can see ST in the middle, so that
Yeah.
must be street. But I don't know what if it says Hamilton or if it has another. But it is a rather familiar structure because a lot of schools were built in that style for a long, long period of time.
Yeah.
We apologize for not having any specific dates
I
as to
know.
when it was there and when it was torn down. But there's only so much research a guy can do when he's trying to do the before and after pictures.
I try to find dates, but sometimes you can't find anything listed.
If you can, it's fine. And I'm sure that some people might be able to supply dates for us, and we'd like to do that. We'll tell you how to get in touch with Ron, and he can write all that information down. So you covered the Hamilton Street School, and now we're at another spot. Boy, I'll tell you,
Elizabeth Street School.
I don't believe that any of these schools were around when I first came to town because I do not remember the Elizabeth Street School. That's 54 Elizabeth Street. And that was a rather large building too. Look at the chimneys and porches, and actually 3 stories, huh?
Yeah.
With a cupola on the top, and I'm sure the old school bell. You wonder if that school bell still exists. They tore a lot of the schools down. Some people would take the school bell and take it home,
Yeah.
maybe mount it in their front yard somewhere, or keep it in an attic.
Melted down.
Yeah, that melted down. That's true too. All right, what's there now, Ron?
It's an apartment house called Elizabeth East.
Just to give you an idea where the old school was. Now, in terms of viewing many of the old business blocks in downtown Plattsburgh, some of them are essentially the same
Yeah, still
and
the same.
look as good or better today than they did 100 years ago. But in the case of schoolhouses, most of them are gone. They've been modernized, the areas have been raised, and new things have been built. Now, here is a wonderful before and after photograph. I'm sure we've seen the original at Special Collections.
Yeah.
Where did you get it?
Well, I found it in that book. I think it was in Nancy's Plattsburgh Souvenir Edition, 1897.
Okay, that's what was not called Plattsburgh State
No, it was normal school.
or
building.
SUNY Plattsburgh. It was called the Normal School. Beekman Street, 1929. Is that a boat on the pond?
Yeah, it looks it.
Wow. There was a tragic fire that forever changed things.
Yeah.
I might point out here that we've seen, our viewers, if they're regular viewers, have seen most of the photographs because we did a special program on Hawkins Hall, on the Plattsburgh State campus and how things have changed. Plattsburgh State Teachers College, as it was called, or the normal school. And after that tragic fire, and it was a tragic fire which all but destroyed the entire building in a half an hour,
Yeah.
then something was raised from the ashes, and this is Hawkins Hall, which was the sum and substance of the school for a long, long time. Now, of course, it's expanded for those people who haven't been to Plattsburgh in a while, and over the last few years, there have been amazing things that have happened inside and outside that building. It is absolutely stupendous inside now. The work in restoring this building It's been terrific. It's impressive for everyone who goes to concerts,
Yeah.
whether they go to classes there or what they do. And I've talked with the workmen during the process, and they were working down in the foundations downstairs. They said they never saw workmanship like that in their lives. Just incredible when that building was rebuilt. And I should say, parts of the original building, especially the foundation, still exist underneath there.
Huh.
So when I say rising from the ashes, I
Yeah.
mean that was what happened. And in the program we did, something that has puzzled me ever since we recorded the program, there was a rather nice statue in the middle of that
Yeah.
pond. We have a photograph of it, we have it on video, and we don't know where it went. After the fire, the last word we got was that suddenly one day it wasn't there. And we don't want to point any fingers, but we would love to hear from any of our viewers who might be able to tell us what happened to that beautiful fountain. I look in people's backyards, but I haven't seen it anywhere. I don't think we'd actually make them return it if we did. Okay. Is this Duville Academy?
Dominican Sisters Convent in
Yeah.
1895.
1895, but then it became Duville Academy.
Yeah.
And many of our viewers who are watching this now, I don't know how old they would have to be to have graduated from Duville Academy, but they've all got very interesting stories and memories. And I'm fortunate enough to have as a friend Bob Carpenter, who did the restoration on this building to open it up as senior housing. And I can't remember what year that was accomplished, but your today photograph was taken in about 1996, as I see there by the date on it. It's really an impressive building. The interior now is still impressive in spite of all the work that was done to restore it. And I do believe, and I've mentioned this before, that they kept the chapel the same as it was way back when. The building really looks great today, doesn't it,
Yeah.
Ron? Terrific.
Yeah, that's good.
Dominican Sisters Convent, 1895, then Duville Academy,
Yeah,
and now in 1996. Terrific.
my sisters went to school there.
Did they really?
Yeah.
And how old would your sisters be?
Oh, one is, I think, 56. That one's like in their 50s.
Okay. So it was in existence
Yeah.
until we don't know exactly what date as a school. I can't remember if it was still working as a school when I came here, but I don't believe it was. This photograph has memories for me, and I'm sure memories for a lot of people. It's, what is it?
Plattsburgh High School, located at 15 Broad Street in 1914.
We talked about the original academy where schooling started at least on the high school level over on Oak Street. And Plattsburgh High School, which is familiar to anybody who graduated from school right up until 1965 maybe.
Yeah.
And it was a great building. Boy, I'll tell you, that does have a lot of memories. A lot of terrific memories. And now it's way different. You can hardly see the school in the background in that picture because there's a long horseshoe-shaped drive,
Yeah,
parking areas in front, and now it is
Stafford Middle School.
the Stafford Middle School. Plattsburgh High School was moved shortly after that, all the way up to Ruger Street.
Yeah.
And that's where it exists today, and it's been undergoing tremendous changes in the interim. Oh boy, more fond memories for many of our viewers and for me. This is
Our Lady of Victory Academy, located as it looked in 1937 at 146 South Catherine Street.
That's the year of my birth, 1937. And it was a busy place with a building next door,
Yeah.
of course, that you can barely see in the new photograph that was taken just a few years ago. And the building then, the building that is the building next door, was turned into the Our Lady of Victory Secretarial School.
Yeah.
And was operated as a secretarial school for many years as well. But in looking at that building, I'll tell you what, It really didn't do a great deal of changing.
No.
The original structure was maintained, even the porches, maintained pretty well, right?
Right.
And it's great to see that happen anywhere in our community. Okay. Now, we talked about Duville Academy, didn't we? Now we're going to talk about the Duville Convent Annex.
Yeah.
Where was that located?
I was looking at North Catherine Street, now it's St. Peter's Catholic School,
That's right across,
where the green school was.
right, yeah, where the green school was, and this is the way it looks today. I hope our viewers are as impressed as I am with the work that you've done, because it represents a great deal of time and effort. It takes us only a moment to show the photographs and look at them, but then think about Ron having to copy the photograph, make it on the right size, and then find the location and take a picture of it. Now, we talked before about the academy. You can call it the Plattsburgh High School, the forerunner to the high school we showed you just a few minutes ago. That's what it looked like. That was a very impressive old building, wasn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4 stories at least. And that's where people went to high school back in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And today it is, parts of that building are inside parts of the Plattsburgh Public Library. And if you walk down Oak Street and look there, you can see the parts of the old building that still exist there. Because that's what it is today. And once again, if you are a regular viewer of Our Little Corner, you know what it looks like inside the buildings next door, because we've done a couple of tours of the Clinton Essex Franklin Library System, have we not? Yes, we have. Okay, here's a picture that I've seen before, but not in a long, long time. This may also have been in that book that Nancy put out again, huh?
Yeah, that's it.
The Peristrome Presbyterian Church, located in Plattsburgh at the intersection of Oak and Brinkerhoff Streets. And things have changed a little bit there since that time, haven't they, Ron? What have we
Quite
got there
often.
now? Just
Another parking lot.
another parking lot. Calvin can hum the song in the background. We know all about parking lots. All right. We did a wonderful program at Temple Beth Israel, now located off Adirondack Lane, in the area near the high school, between the present Plattsburgh High School and the field house. We learned a great deal about the Jewish community and where it's come from and how it expanded in this community since the beginning. But maybe, and we also heard at that time that one of the original synagogues was on Oak Street. Now we can prove it, can't we? We've got the photograph. This is the first Temple Beth Israel synagogue, located on Oak Street, as it looked when, Ron?
1866.
April 14th, my wife's birthday.
Oh.
1866, and it was right next door to the Plattsburgh Public Library. As we move up Oak Street, this is what it looks like now, and this is the one I told you we toured, what, a year and a half ago, maybe, Calvin? Something like that. Clinton Essex Franklin Library System, which is connected with the Plattsburgh Public Library, are right next door.
And next door to the...
Next door to that, and those who can remember what you just saw, was the United Methodist Church. The one that was destroyed in a tragic, spectacular fire in the 1950s, which is now Long Apartments, on Oak Street in Plattsburgh. Okay. Oh, here's a good one. Now here we go, before that Plattsburgh High School was built.
Before.
This goes back to the original academy that we've mentioned a number of times here on Oak Street. And this photograph was taken way back when, in
75.
1875. What a decent, look at those faces. Look at the skirts.
Yeah.
That's a wintertime picture. Isn't it interesting how a lot of these photographs were taken in the wintertime?
Yeah.
You took the newer picture of the public library, the one that we've just seen a few minutes ago, not during the
Wintertime.
wintertime because there are leaves on those trees. But that's the original academy from 1875 that became the high school, and then the high school was moved. Okay, and here's a better photograph of the old and the new. And we talked about Professor George H. Hudson, right?
Yeah.
In the normal school, somewhere you think after 1900, the original photograph.
Yeah.
Look at that walkway, which is much narrower now, and look at the beautiful flowers on both sides. Don't you wish that were in color? You can see that they tried to maintain, when they rebuilt it, they tried to maintain some of that original flavor, didn't they, huh? And I can't point out enough for our viewers how beautiful it looks both inside and outside since the fairly recent restoration. Every time I go inside, I see something new that attracts my attention. And we've learned quite a bit about Professor Hudson in our historical travels right here. Well, 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 what the heck are we looking at here, my friend?
These were students, faculty of women from the community. The dresses were very fine for planning and gardening behind normal school in the 1890s. And there's a distance that you can see, be seen Beekman Street, and to the left is the Vias home?
The Vilas home,
Vilas.
of course, the Vilas home.
Let me get the Vilas home. Okay.
And the Vilas home is quite an edifice all by itself. It's because it's been expanded recently. And once again, I'm not sure that any of our viewers could tell from this dark photograph, but some of your relatives may be there. Some of their relatives, people who are viewing this program, might be there. As a matter of fact, depending on when this photograph was taken, one of those people could be my mother-in-law. Because the late Leona Trudeau Vaughn was a graduate of the normal school, and we're guessing 1917 or 18. No, maybe 1919 or 1920, because she was born in 1900. And she taught in this area for some years after graduating from the normal school. That's very interesting. And of course, that particular spot today looks a little bit different. I don't even think the trees are the same. Do you, Ron?
No. Everything changes.
Everything does change. Even photographs of you and me a few years ago changed just a little bit to show that we have grown in one way or the other. Now, this before and after is very different. It's not the same building at all. What is this
First
before?
Presbyterian Church, located at Brickhouse Street, was destroyed by fire in 1867. And they
There's that 1867 fire again, and wow, there certainly is nothing very much the same, is there? Not very much the same. Boy, there were huge pillars out front, and the traditional iron fences.
Yeah.
Some iron fences still exist in Plattsburgh that have been around it for a long time. You'll find some pretty neat iron fences around cemeteries.
Yeah.
You'll find an iron fence, I believe, all the way around St. John's Church. Am I correct? From one end to the other?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, a friend of mine, Al Hassler, when they lived in town, he got some iron fence from somebody and put around his place over on Breakerhoff Street. And this is the First Presbyterian Church as it looks these days. Not even the same kind of building, really. They decided to go with some tremendous design changes when they built the new church, which is still beautiful. Absolutely.
The second Presbyterian church.
Yeah, yeah, the second Presbyterian church. We try to interject a little humor in our program. Okay, what did we do?
You
Oh.
did, okay.
I did both sides.
Okay. This here goes on top of that.
Okay, on top of that, we'll try to get it right, so we put it in the book in the right way. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Look at this. What do we got here, my friend?
Bailey Avenue School in 1959, located at Bailey Avenue. Before it was remodeled in 1993. This is how the school looks today.
Oh. Yeah, that's the old Bailey Avenue School. Boy, talk about some tremendous changes, and that's not very far. Only about how many houses?
Not that far.
2 or 3 houses from where we're sitting right now. It's what's this 72 Bailey Avenue, right?
Yeah.
And it has changed a lot. And our good friend, crossing guard, is still working there.
he's
I
still
see
there.
him out there almost every day and smile at him. And he's been doing that for a long, long time. Did you go to school at Bailey Avenue School?
Yeah, I did. But he wasn't there then when I went there.
But he's been there for a long
he's been there a
time.
long time.
I don't know how many years. What year did you stop going to school there? Can you remember?
I moved from there to Oak Street. Because there was an older guy that was there. Then later on, Leo took it over after.
I can't remember
I can't
what
remember
year,
what-
but
I
I
can't
know
remember
he's been there for a long
I
time.
can't remember what
and
year it was.
He's garnered some accolades and praise and thanks from many, many parents whose kids just come to know him like a fixture, a veritable crossing guard icon in the community of Plattsburgh for sure. Well, I got some memories of this schoolhouse right here. And let's take a look. What is this?
Scamotion River School,
Yep.
located just past Scamotion Creek Bridge, or River Bridge.
Yep. On North Margaret Street, better affectionately known as Scamotion Creek. So the Scamotion Creek River Public School, and that building did exist when I first moved to Plattsburgh, and I've told this story before, but it's appropriate now because you have a picture of it. The first election I ever covered here, way back when on the radio, my boss sent me, probably knowing this would be a bath by fire, to the Scamotion Creek School. And there were some senior citizens there whose job it was to make sure everything was fine. There were no voting machines, by the way. They were all paper ballots. And my job was to wait till they counted them all and to bring that information back to the radio studio so we could get the latest election returns on there. I was a new reporter, and I walked in and introduced myself, and the ladies could not have cared less about this young guy there. They were interested in telling how their gardens had grown and what they baked, what kind of bread they baked that day. And people came in slowly and voted, and they got all done. And I said, now I need the results. And the ladies said, oh, we're tired. The boxes were sealed, and the ladies went home, and nobody in the listening audience knew what the vote was at the Scamotion Creek School until the ladies decided to get up the next day. And that was my first election coverage was almost my last because of that. I hadn't learned yet to be forceful and forward in getting information. And now it's different.
Yeah, it's different.
It's not there.
It's not there anymore.
I'm guessing that school was probably, that schoolhouse was torn down sometime in the early 60s, wouldn't you?
I think so.
I think so. And my good friend Wayne Lagoy went to school there, and I'll tell you somebody else who went to school in that schoolhouse. Our very dear friend, the late Michael Finnegan, and most of his family, and many other families, got their education right there at the Scamotion Creek School. Did we finish the schools and churches?
Yeah, finished it.
We did it in record time. It's amazing. And now, folks, a new chapter. And that chapter is, what do we got here?
Clinton County Fairgrounds and Plattsburgh Traction Company.
The fairgrounds we know about because you've already told us it was
Yeah.
located right behind your house.
Yeah.
And the Plattsburgh Traction Company, for those people who may be viewing our little corner for the first time, that was the company that had the trolleys.
Yeah.
all through the city of Plattsburgh and all the way out to Bluff Point, right?
Right.
Oh my goodness. Once again, I've seen most of these photographs at one time or
Yeah.
another, but not for a long time. This is great. What is it?
Clinton County Fairgrounds. That was the entrance, located on Bailey Avenue.
1916. How far would that entrance be from where your house is located here?
This
Would you guess?
right about 100 feet down down the
Not
street.
very far away.
Not very far.
Oh my goodness. Now your next job will be to build a perfectly accurate model of the entire Bailey.
Fairground?
No. Have you ever done, what, you've done buildings, right?
Yeah.
You've modeled buildings.
I built a castle for my brother-in-law in Connecticut. So.
Have you got pictures of it?
I got pictures of it.
Okay, we'll have to see. This is a whole chapter that's way down the road, and the model building this guy has done is just absolutely incredible. Give you an idea what that looks like today, because we're talking about Bailey Avenue School and the recreation park at Bailey Avenue, which has changed considerably, as people will remember when they tore those bleachers down. I was there recording.
Yeah.
When they tore the old green monster, if you want to call it the green monster. You thought that somebody else coined that phrase? No way. That was a big old fairgrounds. And that was the old Bailey Avenue Park, is where I used to box way back when in the 1950s, and we had some great times there. That's that would be the fairgrounds as it looked then, and that roughly that same area.
Same area. When they re-landscaped it different. So.
Well, you know, when they did a tremendous job at Bailey Avenue. It's a nice design.
Yeah.
The way the whole area is a nice design. A lot of people, you bring your kids over there to play. Generally, they have an ice skating rink in the winter. I don't think they had one this year, though.
Yeah, they got it this year.
They didn't have an ice skating rink. And I am tremendously embarrassed not to have been ice skating in several years. My granddaughter, Megan, called me up and she said, I want ice skating, Pa. I bought a pair of ice skates. I said, where'd you go? She said, over at South Platte Street.
Oh.
And it was a beautiful night for skating. And guess how many people were there? 2. And back in the old days, when we used to go down behind the old high school, and when I took my big kids now in their 40s and 50s down there skating, there would be hundreds there. There would be music, and there would be so many frozen feet.
Yeah.
You should try to get inside where it was warm. Some of the old clubhouses, if you want to call them that, had a wood stove in there. And boy, there were a lot of people gathered around that wood stove. There was always somebody saying, Dad, my skates are loose. Can you tighten my skates? A lot of fun. You ever been skating outside?
No, I never skated. My sister used to. But,
Did she? Yeah, I used to love to skate. All right, we showed that picture. That's the fairgrounds, right?
That's right.
And that first picture of the fairgrounds was 1916, the
1960.
grandstand, right? And now we got some more pictures here. What have we got here, my friend?
That's the grandstand taken in 1974 before they took it down.
Was that
I've been-
1974?
Yeah, that's when I took that picture.
You know, it's amazing to me. I'm not embarrassed to get older, but it's amazing to me how quick 26 years has gone skittering by us, because that was quite a project when they tore that down. A lot of people talked about it. A lot of people stood around. A lot of people came back with their metal detectors to try to find old coins. And I have a friend who was very busy with his metal detector back then, and he found some Civil War era coins right in that location. I think I found a few old pennies underneath just to have a souvenir somewhere in a book under the bed upstairs in my house. You find some of the things that I took away when they were tearing down Bailey Avenue. This is a much better long-distance photograph of what the Clinton County Fairgrounds looked like as you're looking where, in what direction here?
East from Boynton Avenue.
And Yeah, from Boynton Avenue, just as you're coming down the Boynton Avenue hill before you would be turning into what is now the new Bailey Avenue Park. And you can see church steeples and two church steeples in the background on the right. You can see the barns, the racetrack,
Racetrack,
and the
stables.
whole bit. There's a lot of dirt roads back
Yeah,
then,
yeah,
weren't there, huh? Okay, and now, as it looks today from roughly that same spot coming down the Boynton Avenue hill, things have changed tremendously. Plattsburgh's first radio station, the original WMFF, was located here on Bailey Avenue. At some location, I've seen the pictures of the old shack and an old car out front and a few other things. But you don't have any pictures of that, do you?
No,
But they're around somewhere.
I got EAV.
EAV out
on Court Street.
on Court Street, and that's where that was when I first started in the radio business around the 4th of July, 1961. Okay, I know what this is, and I wonder if our viewers can tell just by looking at that old building what it is. Now Ron's going to tell you.
That's the Bruce Street Car Barn located at Plattsburgh Traction Company. No, it's Blair and Weber.
We're in Weber Studios, and you have to kind of drive in around to see where it is now. You can see the tracks and those beautiful old cars. And sometime, if you're a faithful hometown cable viewer of this program called Our Little Corner, we'll show you a copy of a trolley, a model of a trolley that Ron made. If you didn't see it before when we first met him at the farmer's market, those were neat, those trolleys.
Yeah.
Don't you wish they were still here?
Yeah, they should have kept one.
I think they should have kept one.
And when I found out from Blair and Weber, they said the original tracks are still under the floor of the car barn.
Come on.
That's what they told me.
Well, they
When I
would
went there.
probably know. Take a look at what the building looks like today. It's great. They've got some nice studios in there. They got some very large, bright rooms, of course, for some of their posed photographs. But that's what it looked like way back when. And I think, I'm looking in the before photograph, and I think I see the word Armour
Yeah.
up there. And I wasn't even aware that Armour was in existence way back when. We have no idea what date that picture might have been taken.
By 1900s.
I would imagine sometime way back when. Oh, this is another a good close-up. You want to see what a trolley car looked like? What trolley car was this? Number?
Number 12, Davis Corners at US Avenue and Elizabeth Street. Inbound from Bluff Point.
On the way back from Bluff Point. Now it's quite a little bit different because the trolley tracks aren't there anymore. Oh boy, in 1996, looked like we had a few potholes, but we won't hold against the mayor who was in back in those days. But that's roughly the same location, and of course, you couldn't see through the trolley car in the original photograph, but those buildings on the base were there at that time, as
Yeah.
you can see behind there, and are still there now. It said Bluff Point on it. Well, how did you know it was US Avenue and Elizabeth Street?
Well, from when I read it in a book.
Oh, okay, it showed,
When I do my research. Yeah.
told you the location, and you checked it out. Those trolleys were amazing. And when you built your trolley, you told me you actually had to kind of make a blueprint. You
Yeah.
showed us,
The-
and our viewers will get a chance to look at that blueprint. When Ron makes models, he doesn't just make a reasonable facsimile. When he makes models, he goes right down to the tiniest detail he can get in there, don't you?
yeah.
The original cranks and the seat handles and whatever you can see
Yeah.
in the photograph, you try to put in there.
You want to build it exact. You know, I mean, close as you can get it.
You want to build it exact. That makes it great for other people. Now, back in the old days, and we're guessing that this would be 1917, there was something called a waiting station. What was a waiting station? Where
That's
you
right.
wait for the trolley?
Yeah, well, you wait for the trolleys, you know.
Well, why not?
that
I
time.
just never heard it called a waiting station before. And that's at the intersection of what? Route 9?
And US Avenue. Well, it's US Avenue and, uh, and, uh, and Elizabeth.
And Elizabeth.
And US Avenue. And US Avenue and Route 9. And US Avenue. Well, it's US Avenue and Elizabeth. And US Avenue and Route 9. And US Avenue and Elizabeth. And US Avenue and Route 9. And US Avenue and Elizabeth. And US Avenue and Route 9. And US Avenue and Elizabeth. And US Avenue and Route 9. And US Avenue and Elizabeth. And US Avenue and Route 9. And US Avenue and Elizabeth. And US Avenue and Route 9. And US Avenue and Elizabeth. And US Avenue and Route 9. And US Avenue and Elizabeth. And US Avenue and Route 9. And US Avenue and Elizabeth. And US Avenue and Route 9. And US Avenue and Elizabeth. And US Avenue and Route 9. And US Avenue and Elizabeth. And US Avenue and Route 9. And US Avenue and Elizabeth.
Yeah, Route 9
Yeah,
is
Route
US
9.
Avenue,
Yeah.
and it's looking north at Plattsburgh Barracks in 1917.
Yeah,
And I think you did stand in pretty much the same location, because I can see those old buildings on the old base on the right-hand side. There isn't very much on the left-hand side of the road that's still there, although one of those telephone poles looks like it might be in roughly the same location, just to give you an idea what it looks like today. I think our viewers will be getting the picture now about how much wonderful history we have in our North Country. It's incredible, isn't it?
yeah,
Every area has history, but ours is just especially great. And some people might say, I wonder exactly where those railroad tracks were back in around 1917. Where are those trolley car tracks? Where were they? Which side of the road were they on? You got it.
I got it.
This is a picture that you don't remember where you got this particular photograph, do you?
I think it was a book that covered the Plattsburgh Traction Company.
Okay. And it really gives you an idea of just about exactly where those tracks were.
Yeah,
And that would be on the what? The west side of Route 9.
Route 9.
And on the right-hand side, actually, you can, in the original photograph, you can see the gravestones
Yeah,
in the Plattsburgh, in the old barracks cemetery.
yeah,
And that's an interesting cemetery to visit today for those people who may not have visited that cemetery.
yeah, I've been there.
And a recent addition within the last year, right behind that cemetery toward the lake, is Lake Forest Senior Housing
Yeah.
Project. A lot of things have happened, and since 1996, and she
Yeah.
took this photograph even in that area. But it's great for our viewers to see where those trolley tracks were, to realize that we had a rather extensive trolley system here
Yeah.
with the Plattsburgh Traction Company. Oh, yeah. Another view of a trolley. Where would this be?
On Market Street, taken in 1902.
1902? We even know what car it was.
Yeah. Number 4.
That's the number 4 car. And it's hard to see if people are inside. I don't think so.
Oh,
But we can see the conductor right up there on
Yeah.
the front of the car. And yes, you don't really think that any of these cars survived, huh?
I don't think so. I don't know what happened to them.
You would think that somebody would buy one and turn it into a diner. I wonder if any of those diners that were downtown were trolley cars. Because you used to take train cars and cabooses and
Yeah.
turn them into diners. But yeah, that area of downtown has changed a great deal. But the building on the left that says somebody's insurance company, right?
Right.
I can see that, and I can see some various other words. Gibbard. I can see the name Gibbard over that store, right over the top of the conductor's head. I can see
Yeah.
Gibbard and something national. Maybe, I wonder if that was a bank. I
It was a
can't
bank.
tell there. It was a bank.
It was a bank.
Well, that building does exist, but the other adjacent buildings, as we already know from our previous programs, has changed
Yeah.
a great deal. But isn't it fun just to look at these pictures before and after to see what you can recognize from the old days? All right. Oh boy. We've seen a lot of photographs so far in our
Yeah.
current series of the D&H Railroad. But did you know that the trolley cars went up there? Of course they did.
Pick up passengers.
To pick up passengers from the train. Before that, there were even like stagecoaches that went up there to pick
Yeah.
people up, weren't there? And this would have been in the 1920s,
1920s.
as you said. And the sidewalk is in the same cotton picking spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
But other things have changed in the foreground and background. But I have to tell you that the old D&H Railroad, the old D&H Railroad Station looks just about as good today as it ever did,
Yeah.
right? The building has been extremely well preserved. And we'll thank those people who were involved in its preservation. Oh, there are a lot of great cars. A lot of great cars. Here we got, what, a couple of them together, right?
Yeah,
What do we got here?
Two open cars shown at Cliff Haven in the early 1900s. Buildings in the background was the club room and dining hall of the Catholic Summer School of the America. Photo was taken at the spot where tracks cross the highway to go to the other side where it goes to the Bluff Point Hotel.
Oh, to the Bluff Point Hotel. Now I have a new newspaper to me that was given to me by our friend Peg Barkham to be preserved for antiquity, and we will do that, but not until we've shown it to our viewers. And there are so many things in that one 1910 photograph that deserve preserving. Calvin and I have talked about them, not the least of which is talk about the Battle of Plattsburgh, the War of 1812, the commission that was formed to get ready for the centennial in 1914. And also, excuse me, also, there was a large front page story about the new Catholic girls' school right here at Cliff Haven, which was opening in 1910. So it's a great piece of history.
Yeah.
Looking at those trolley cars, and now looking at what that area looks like today, in a rather affluent part of the city of Plattsburgh on the south side called Cliff Haven, which is itself steeped in all kinds of history, because it was there that two boys back in the 1960s found a couple of cannon and not very much water, and a much thinner Gordy Little, who's he, went out on a boat with a much thinner Captain Frank Pabst and raised the anchors as we broadcast and did interviews, and then they were the subject of a great deal of controversy for decades. Oh, this is just another great photograph of a trolley car. And where this is at Bluff Point. When we say terminus, the Bluff Point terminus, what we mean is that's where it ended. That's where the tracks ended. That's where the turnaround was. That would be out at Bluff Point, which is the current home of Clinton Community College on the Lakeshore Road south of Plattsburgh. Is still a very impressive edifice and has been expanded a great deal. And as I've said hundreds of times, and I'll say till I draw my last breath, it's one of my favorite places in the world. I love to go out there and imagine what it was like to take a trolley ride out there and walk up to the top and then just stand out on the bluff and look out over Lake Champlain. It's a wonderful experience. And that specific location is right near the entrance to the present Clinton Community College. You were standing on, probably on either on the grass or on the roadway, taking that picture back toward Route 9.
Probably on the grass.
On the grass, taking that
You gotta
photograph.
you have to watch out for traffic.
That's true. If you're going to stand in the middle of the road, unless you have people out there flagging for you.
I know. This one I didn't add yet because I just added these in.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, that's another entrance to the Clinton County Fairground. Take around, I think it was September 8th.
This is really neat. The Clinton County Agricultural Fair also has a rich history. And everybody saved their money to go to the fair. If you didn't go to the fair, you were an outsider. Everybody went to the fair. My earliest memories, of course, are not of the Clinton County Fair, but of what we used to call the Malone Fair or the Franklin County Fair. Same deal, though. Even back in the 1950s when I was there, everybody saved their money and went to the fair. And you didn't go just for an hour. You went every cotton-picking day. And I imagine, even though you don't remember when the fairgrounds were here, I imagine, did your father and mother live here?
No, my father and my grandmother did.
So your dad probably did go to the fair as a small child.
He said he used to jump the fence to get in.
That's the chapter of the Gordy Little story that I suppose could be told now. I'm not sure if the statute of limitations has expired on fence jumping. I've done a little bit of fence jumping on my own, and I didn't train my kids to do that. Well, we were a rather large and poor family, and I think some of the little and Baker kids, maybe once or twice over the span of their childhoods, snuck in the back way to the Clinton County Fair. And sometimes they were caught. Sometimes they were brought to my porch by the ear. Well, have we done it?
Yeah, did that one already.
We did that one already. I tell you, we have kicked an hour right in the seat of the pants already, and I'm just getting cranked up and ready to go. I put the new, I brought the Energizer Bunny with me in my pocket today, and we got new batteries, and we're going, and we're going to launch into another category. And this category is called
Banks and manufacturing. You know, the companies who used to make stuff here from way back.
I was astounded when I first moved to the Plattsburgh area to find out how many different things were manufactured here.
Yeah.
The first research I did was on guns, manufacturing guns in Plattsburgh. The next research I did was on clocks manufactured in Plattsburgh. The next research I did was on automobiles and boats manufactured in Plattsburgh. There were a lot of other things that were made here down through the years. Some things are still made here. For example, down where Gibberts are, down there at the making steel things.
Yeah.
Have you ever been down through their factory?
No, haven't been there.
That's kind of amazing. I've had occasion to have some steel parts manufactured down there to watch those guys at work, and that's been there for a long, long time. But not only the city of Plattsburgh, as our viewers know who've followed us up around the northern tier, there were a lot of things made here. As a matter of fact, back in the days when lumbering and mining were popular, and we've covered those topics several times on this program, there are a lot of things made at the various mills along the riverbanks and in the hinterlands of Clinton County. Okay, did our viewers know that there was a Vilas National Bank? Well, folks, if you didn't know it, you do now. What about this, Ron?
Well, it's the oldest institution of its kind in Plattsburgh, beginning originally established by the late Samuel T. Vilas, I guess. I can't pronounce his name.
As a private bank.
Private bank. Successfully for many years prior to the incorporation in 1863. Now it's the home for the restaurant.
Mr. Wu.
Wu's Restaurant.
Mr. Wu. I haven't been to see Mr. Wu in a long time. Get in there and see how the cooking is doing these days, but it certainly is a little different today than it was when it was the Vilas National Bank. So that was the original bank in Plattsburgh, you think?
I think so. There was like, I think one of four of them. There's four different ones. There's that one and some other one.
And there have been a number of banking institutions, and like the healthcare industry, banking has changed dramatically over the last, well, I'll give it a decade, to the point where, and this is not a disparaging remark, it's just a fact. Sometimes you're not quite sure what the name of your bank is when you go to do your business on a given Monday. And sometimes I haven't even used the old bank cards before the new cards come in the mail. And I've given up on trying to remember those PIN numbers from all. So I have one card that I use because I have a one-track mind. Did I show you the new version of this? Yeah, we did. Okay. There are other banks. And this one was called?
First National Bank of Plattsburgh.
I wonder how many banks in the country were called the First National Bank, like the First Presbyterian Church, huh? Well, this one was organized when?
December 24th, 1863.
Well, there was a lot going on in the mid-1860s, just before the Civil War era here in the city of Plattsburgh. And as it says here, it is one of the oldest and most substantial banks in this whole area, the First National Bank. And the address was what?
89 Margaret Street.
Guess what, folks? It has changed a little bit, as we showed you maybe in the first series of photographs, right?
Yeah.
On this program, it's now Woodstock. Is Woodstock still in there? I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, not being a person who frequents those places at this point in my life, I would not be familiar, but it's Woodstock 2, okay? Oh boy. I wonder if this has to do with the mining operation here in the North Country. This bank is called what?
Iron National Bank. Among the leaders of Bank of Plattsburgh is the Iron National Bank, old and reliable bank organized and incorporated in May of 1881.
May of 1881. These were all on Margaret Street in downtown Plattsburgh. Is this one on Margaret Street, do you think?
This one was on Brickhoff Street.
Brinkerhoff Street. I'm trying to look now. Is the building the same, do you think?
Yes, still the same.
It's the same building.
Yeah, now it's Lake City Treasures. It's a flea market.
Oh, okay. It's
antique store.
really kind of neat the way they fixed it up. And the address is number 10, right?
Yeah, 10.
I think. Wonderful photograph. Oh, we didn't show this side. Did we? No. Okay. All banks weren't the same. This one was called what?
The Merchants National Bank. The city has every reason to be proud of the banking corporation conducted as they are so thoughtful, a sound and conservative basis. Merchants National Bank was organized and incorporated in 1884.
And now it's a lawyer's office.
Lawyer's
I love the language. Did you hear what Ron said? This city has every reason to be proud of its banking corporations conducted as they are on so thoroughly a sound and conservative basis. Not necessarily a tourist brochure, but waxing pontifical and talking about banking institutions now. Yeah, it is changed. It's lawyers' offices. I believe those people are still there, Edward Meyer and Bracy. We're on Brinkerhoff Street again, aren't we?
Yeah, 16 Brinkerhoff.
16 Brinkerhoff Street here in the city of Plattsburgh. Okay. This is really neat stuff.
Yeah.
Now we're getting down to the north end of town, in a place where I like to be, because you talk about Plattsburgh history. We got it here, and you really got into this Lozier thing, haven't you?
After a while I did.
When did you first learn about the Lozier Car Company?
Well, I used to hear my father talk about it, but then I found a postcard up that, like I was telling you before, at the Methodist Church. So I bought the card, and then I went, and on a Sunday morning, I went down and took a picture of it to see how much did it change since when that picture was taken.
Well, was your father directly associated with the Lozier Company? No?
No. He used to talk about Lozier cars and like that.
Because somebody told me, and once again, my memory is horrible, and I'm not sure if it was my friend Leo Perry, the former historian for the town of Scholar Falls, but somebody told me that their father worked there testing out the cars. And the first car ride they ever had was in a Lozier car.
Yeah.
Your father said, come down, I got to test the car. Didn't they test them down in that area?
Yeah, they used to test them from there way down to Bluff Point.
Bluff Point? And this person got in the car, mind you, open cars, no seat belts.
No seats.
And this person told me, I thought that was the last day of my life. We were doing 14 or 15 miles an hour. And I was really scared. I swore I'd never ride in a car again.
And then when I found they road tested the cars between 15 and 25 below zero to see how they hold up on cold weather. And they used to do the same in summertime when it was hot.
Isn't that amazing? Now this is Georgia Pacific, of course, here today, an institution that's been surviving and thriving in the city of Plattsburgh for well over 3 decades. And before that, what was it, Diamond National?
BFD.
Yeah. All right. And on the flip side here, my friend, what have we got?
Boomhauer's Creamery, located at 1 Riley Avenue, next to Mickey's Restaurant.
That's a great photograph, which I don't believe I have ever seen. Boomhauer's Creamery. You can just see the tip of the American flag flying proudly down in the corner with a railroad car right nearby. And yeah, you got in roughly the same spot, didn't you?
Yeah.
To take the picture now, because that area now occupied by, I still think it still is, by Northway Discount
Yeah,
Beverages.
still there.
In the background, right?
Part of the foundation's still there.
Oh,
It's
it
all-
is?
Yeah, it's all covered up like brush and like that. But
Oh,
it's still
no
there.
kidding. Oh, A.D. Boomhauer's Creamery. Wow, I have to remember that. Okay, now I told you there was a lot of manufacturing going on here, but until now, I wouldn't be surprised if some of our viewers did not know about the what?
Williams Manufacturing Company,
What did they make?
sewing machines and typewriters, located on Pine Street.
Pine Street, would that be, well, I wonder where that would be in relationship to where the city police station would be
Well,
now,
it's in that vicinity.
right in that general vicinity. And that was a big factory.
Yeah.
That was a monster factory. I wonder how long they did business here. You're getting to whet my appetite. Now, I want our viewers to look into the river. What do you see in the river, folks? Lots and lots and lots of logs.
Logs.
In those days, they discovered back in the 1800s that they could float logs all the way down the Saranac
Yeah.
from the timber country. And once they did that, it changed the face of lumbering around here for a long, long time. And you've already seen photographs
Yeah.
previously of the Baker Lumber Company down at the end of Bridge Street. This is Pine Street. Well, you see what you have written in your notes? The Plattsburgh City Police Department, where the Williams Manufacturing Company used to
It
be.
used to be.
So there you go.
Yeah.
When I say you were in that same general area, you were right there, weren't you?
This is another one of Williams Manufacturing, but it's taken from across the
Oh, I
from
see.
Saranac Street.
Oh,
That was that.
okay, yes. Yes, yes, yes. This is what the backside of it.
Yeah, the
then.
backside, taken across from the Saranac River, but you notice they cover a bridge with the railroad tracks on top.
Oh, isn't that fascinating? What a great picture that is. Covered bridges. We don't have many around anymore. The last vestiges of a covered bridge exist in Jay, New York. And as we're recording this on the 8th day of February in 2000, there is still controversy raging about where the bridge is going to be. There have been recent announcements that the bridge is now going to be replaced downstream of the original location. I've been having a running commentary with a friend of mine called Wesleyan Goodman, who lives in Alaska, formerly from Sable Forks area, and she was willing to bet the farm that it was going to be the upstream site that was chosen. Very interesting, but I did not remember that there was a covered bridge there at one time with the railroad tracks on top of it.
Yeah, top.
Now I wonder if there are any, I didn't know there were double-decker bridges back in those days, and what kind of a structure would it take to hold an engine, and you know how heavy those engines were, on top of that. That's truly amazing. And now, here's a little piece of history for kids who were brought up in that area and for
Yeah.
people who use the footbridge, because the footbridge isn't even used anymore, right? It's
No.
closed. It's blocked off. But that was a very familiar traverse from one side of the river to the other back in those days off behind Pine Street. We've seen this picture before. As a matter of fact, this picture, I believe, appears in that, unless I miss my guess, in that 100-year retrospective that our friend Jeff Myers did for the Press Republican,
Yeah.
recalling the significant events and times involved in the 20th century. And this is what?
Plattsburgh Shirt Factory, located on Pine Street. Now it's this athletic field behind the Stafford Middle School.
I wonder if did they make shirts here?
I think so.
I knew looks like they were hiring back in those days, and if
Yeah.
you look way up in the top windows, you can see some folks sitting precariously on the windowsills. I would guess that this was maybe sometime during a parade, maybe. There were a lot of people gathered out front and along the side, so something was happening out front there.
Yeah.
And I've got to tell you, That is a long time ago.
Yeah,
But that area has been many things since then.
I know, even a skating rink there.
And a skating rink. As I told you, I spent a lot of time with my kids skating there. After that building, the shirt factory, was torn down, unless I miss my guess, and I hope I have the chronology right, I think that was part of a city dump. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't mind being corrected. And there were a lot of things buried in there when they turned that into an athletic field. And when I first came here in the early 60s, that was the high school athletic field. That's where the high school teams ran track and played their football games and did the whole 9 yards. And occasionally there would be an injury. Somebody scuffed the dirt, and some of those old tin can lids would somehow work their way to the surface and create some injuries back way back when. But it's been an athletic field, and as you say now, is now the athletic field behind the Stafford Middle School, and I spent a lot of hours watching various sporting activities there with my kids as they grew up. All right, it's a little difficult to see
Yeah,
specific details in this photograph, so you're going to have to fill in the blanks with your imagination. And this is the Whittlesey Foundry, the SS Whittlesey Foundry. We talked about the Plattsburgh Foundry
yeah,
in the Gibbard family in all those years. But this Whittlesey, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, foundry was located where?
41 Bridge Street,
41 Bridge Street.
around, I think it was 1800s, 1883.
But it was down by
The Saranac River.
the Saranac River.
Yeah.
And I've got to tell you that this is part of the Riverwalk.
Yeah, part
now.
of the Riverwalk.
And this area is really quite nice. I use the word delicious to describe a lot of things besides food. But I find this a delicious place.
Yeah,
I like the Riverwalk. I like the concept of the Riverwalk. I like the bricks that they put in. I like just to walk along the Riverwalk and kind of reflect. You see the beautiful trees that are in existence there now and the wall that's down behind the river. And it's not just a great place to be when we're celebrating the Battle of Plattsburgh
Yeah.
weekend. It's a great place to just get down and walk.
yeah,
And a lot of communities have lost those little walkways and parks that they used to have.
yeah.
And Plattsburgh has had the foresight to reinstate one. So it's kind of nice to walk down along the Riverwalk, and I hope some of our viewers will get a chance to do it. Well, now you had to keep people warm and produce lights and electricity, and that was kind of a novel idea way back when. And this is called the what?
Plattsburgh Light and Heat and Power Company, seen from the back of Saranac Street, now as it looks today.
All right, let's take a look at it the way it looked then. Once again, a rather grainy photograph with these huge barn-like structures down there. But that little Saranac Street, oh, you picked a wet day to go down there, didn't you?
Yeah,
Oh, that was once again in 1996. You took an awful lot of these pictures in 1996, didn't you, Ron?
yeah. I try to get all I can and shoot that many what I could in that year. And then
Ah.
write the information in during the wintertime, see?
Oh, that's a great idea. I hope many of our viewers will be inspired to do their own investigation into the history of their area,
Yeah,
especially if they live here in the city of Plattsburgh. And we're not, all we're doing is giving you the little bit of history that we may have picked up or that you wrote down.
yeah,
But there's a great deal of the history and how power was produced here in the city of Plattsburgh that is electric power. Now
Yeah.
it finally expanded into the greater environs of the city of Plattsburgh. And the history of the municipal lighting company here in
Yeah.
Plattsburgh is a colorful history. And I find myself defending municipal power companies
Yeah.
because, ever since the old days, and then my good friend, the late George Reich, when he became here,
yeah,
when he finally came here as manager, and right up to the present time, I've talked about municipal power and how we were fortunate enough to have the lowest electric rates in the country.
yeah,
And now, as we do this program, there's controversy once again about how much the power costs in the city of Plattsburgh. We've had a very cold portion of the winter. People's electric rates their bills have risen tremendously over the last couple of weeks or month. And the explanation is, folks, it was cold.
Yeah.
And during the cold winter months, we're forced to use not just hydropower, as we did at one time, but the more expensive nuclear power and
Yeah.
other power sources which cost more money.
Yeah.
Voila, a higher electric bill. But they would complain if those same people lived on Long Island and they had to deal with Con Ed,
Yeah.
Consolidated Edison on Long Island, they would find out what high electric rates are all about. So this city has been blessed with low
Yeah.
electric power, and that's why it's attracted a great deal of the manufacturing that it has over the years. Oh, here's another.
That's seen from the other side, from Pine Street,
Ah,
from across the Saranac River.
things have changed a great deal down there, as you well know.
Yeah.
This area played a significant role during the Battle of Plattsburgh and the land forces and so on with the forts along the Saranac River. And now it's just a nice little peaceful river going
Yeah.
down through there these days. You can get an idea that it is rather placid. The river is not too fast moving right in that particular location, but it's a good idea to go through this manufacturing business
Yeah.
to see what huge plants and
Buildings.
the buildings there were back in those days. Well, here we go again. What is this? As
Plattsburgh
if we
Steam-
couldn't tell.
It's the Plattsburgh Steam Laundry. Drivers are ready to make deliveries and completed laundries. Behind them are the employees of the Plattsburgh Steam Laundry. Now it's the parking lot for the farmer's market.
In downtown Plattsburgh. All of us can remember, I think, a time when, I say all of us, I should speak for myself. I can remember a time when laundry appliances were not very sophisticated. Not to mention the fact that my father was a poor Nazarene minister. And, you know, his salary was some ridiculous thing like $14 every
Yeah.
2 weeks or whatever it was. And so anything we had from our clothes, in my case knickers, which I detested, right down to whatever appliances we had in the house were then antiques, I believe, when we got them. So in the 1930s and early 1940s, we would have had a washing machine, for example, from the 1920s.
Yeah.
So there was still a great deal of drudge involved, and if you wanted white shirts done and you wanted various other things washed, towels and bed linens and so on, and you didn't want to scrub them on a rock or an old-fashioned washboard, and you were fortunate enough to have a laundry in town,
Yeah.
that's where you sent them. You sent your clothes to the laundry. And I remember once during the war years when my mother was working in a laundry, for a very tiny amount of money, for some reason the amount 40 cents an hour comes into my mind. And not only did she work there and lose her job when the laundry burned down, but just about everything we owned happened to be in the laundry at that time. And I can remember my mother and father frantically, how many pairs of socks did we have?
Yeah.
How many, you know, trying to get our money back. That's a beautiful photograph of the people who worked there. And an old truck, way back in just after the first decade, maybe of the 20th century, that says Plattsburgh Steam Laundry on it,
Yeah.
right? Now, this is the way it looks now, and what direction were you taking this from?
Same angle.
Northway Bridge, over the Saranac River,
Yeah.
between exits what? 36 and 37, right?
Yeah, you're on the wrong picture.
Oh, I'm not, that's on the other side.
On the other side.
I've done this before, folks, it won't be the,
There you go.
okay, we've talked about the farmer's market already.
Yeah, good lens in it, Jim.
Really good, showed right straight through. Okay, now, here we go, we're talking nitty gritty here.
This Frenberg Falls Pulp Company, incorporated in 1894. Later it was occupied by American Carbide Works. Now as it looks today, visible from I-Interstate 87 over the Saranac River between exits 36 and 37.
Yeah, now
There
we're
you
getting
go.
between exits 37, we gotta go out of town for this. And that was kind of busy way back when, in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It was kind of a massive stone works, and we watched it deteriorate down through the years as we
Yeah.
drove down the Northway. And yeah, it's just a little bit different
A little bit
today
different
than
now.
it was back then. And here's the view taken from the right from the bridge. I can remember stopping on that bridge. I hope people don't mind me interjecting my own reflections about these areas, but way back when I first started working the radio station and the Northway was just being completed,
Yeah.
we ran a game called a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
And we hid things along the Northway, and I can remember parking on the bridge to look down at where they hid one of the certificates for, I forgot how much money, but it was like hundreds of dollars they were giving away. And somebody in the management of the station had peeled back the bark on a tree and put that certificate under the bark on one of those trees, and then we'd give clues on the air,
Yeah.
leading people. And New York State Police, as I recall, were not our biggest fans in those days because we were stopping traffic on the Adirondack Northway, this wonderful new superhighway where people were stopping. And then, folks, we hid one in a book at the Plattsburgh Public Library. Not a good move. People did things to books that hadn't been done in years. And we also hid one somewhere around a post on the lawn of a municipal building. And all of a sudden we received telephone calls from the local police that there was a group of people with shovels digging holes all over the... We didn't... Finally we had to stop the treasure hunt because people were wrecking public property, but it was fun while it lasted, friends, I'll tell you. I was glad not to have been in management at that time. This is very interesting. What is it?
This is the Cernak Horse Nail Company, located in Plattsburgh, in 1878 on Bridge Street.
Now, as you will recall, in our recent program we did, and it's hard to tell you when it may have been aired on your local cable company, but we talked with a geography professor from Plattsburgh State who knew a lot about horse nail companies in Keysville and in Plattsburgh, and talked about them and how important part they were, the mining days,
Yeah.
the iron mining days way back when. We're talking on Bridge Street in Plattsburgh, folks. Far cry of the way it looks today, and I gotta tell you, I'm very, very impressed by this photograph of now. It's probably taken at the fall of the year. There are still some ragged leaves on the trees, but you can get a very good look across the river at the location where that Saranac Horse Nail Company was located.
Because where I found out, they said it was built above this lower dam, and this was lower dam near Bridge Street. Upper dam was located on South Catherine.
Well, that gave you an idea, huh?
Yeah, where to find it.
Well, as you know, the Imperial Wallpaper Company was a fixture in the south end of Plattsburgh for many years. It's been in the process of closing. They're in the process of trying to sell it. I don't know what the new owner might be, but a lot of people were out of work.
Yeah.
And there are still a few people as we record this that are hanging on. You're right, it was in the 1930s, probably about closer to 1940, judged on the outline of those automobiles.
Yeah.
But the now picture, or the picture as it was when you took it a few years ago, looked like this. And fairly recently, we took former Mayor Clyde Rabideau in the car with us. I drove. I can still turn the wheel and make my lips flap at the same time, and Calvin was in the front seat and the mayor was in the back seat, and we took a ride down there and elsewhere in town to show our folks, our viewers, what the streets of Plattsburgh and its buildings look like as we launched into the new millennium, if indeed it is. I don't know. I get confused with the Chinese New Year's and the new millennium. All I know is it's 2000. And you know what? I haven't noticed any major differences at all. I write 2000 down. I don't have any trouble. Once in a while I put a marked 99 down there by mistake, and I'll catch myself. But I think by now the novelty is just, for me at least, just about worn off. We're well into it.
Yeah.
We're now on the 8th day of February. Okay. Wow. We talked about the pulp business. Logs coming down the river. What do we got here?
International Paper Company, Mill C, seen from the south side before 1927.
Wow, 1927. Once again, huge buildings. As a matter of fact, you can see what it says right on there. Somebody put that on there from way back when. Boy, you had to almost get on the side hill to
Yeah.
take the now picture, didn't you, Ron?
Well, it's about a 72-foot drop, so I had to get the best I could.
I'm amazed that you didn't tie a rope around your belly and hook it onto a tree hanging down over the side there. You wouldn't think of the business of taking before and after pictures as being risky or dangerous, but
Well,
whoa, that's a long ways down into the river there. We would have had a before and after Ron Venne there if we'd have caught you in a lump down in the bottom of the hill. Okay, and on the flip side, what is this?
this is the Kents Falls Hydroelectric development in 1923. Powerhouse substructure. This is what it looks like in 1998.
All right, we'll show the before picture first there, as we did. Oh, they did some massive work up in that area. And they've done a lot of work on the dams up there just since I've lived there, never mind as they were before that. I used to love to take a ride up the Kent Falls Road. But as you know, when you get into the subject of bridges...
Yeah. I got that in another book.
Oh,
Bridges.
yeah, I knew you were going to have that in another book. But the bridge doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it exists, but
Yeah.
you can't go across it anymore. But that's the way the Kent Falls Dam looked in 1998.
These are some more in Kents Falls.
This is very interesting because when I rode up that road for the first time, I looked there and I said, whoa, look at this tremendous steel pipe penstock, right?
Penstock.
Well, guess what Ron's got a picture of, my friends? Penstock steel pipe erection when they put it up on the Kent Falls hydroelectric development. And this was 1923.
Yeah, 23.
And how many times have I gone up there and wished I had a spray can of black paint to erase the graffiti which generations of kids had written on there. Some tender love stories and some not nearly as tender, and beyond the scope of this family program on public television, I assure you. Now, of course, this property owned by New York State Electric and Gas, still along the Kent Falls Road, still a stimulating and, in my case, exhausting bicycle ride, if you want to ride your bicycle there, because there are a lot of pretty steep grades as you head up along the hill. And once again, if you look carefully as you're driving up there, you will see
The surge tank structure still works at Kents Falls Hydroelectric Development. That was taken around the same time, 1923.
there is still, to the best of my knowledge, a little dirt road that will take you up along there, and you can look at the tower close up. And it is a little bit of a landmark as you're
Yeah.
going up there, because you see it up there on the left, and that's what the area looks like today. I didn't know until this very day that there was an actual photograph of putting that penstock steel pipe up.
These are some pictures my grandmother had from, because my mother lived in Morrisonville.
Oh
So it
my,
must have been pictures that she had.
oh my, that's really neat.
These are the group of workers. I think my grandfather's in one of them, but I can't find him.
You haven't found which person he is? Is that what you're telling me?
It's a Dome Mill construction crew on the development of the Kents Falls Hydroelectric Plant and Kents Falls Road. But that's what the area looks like now.
Let me look at the old one first. It looked like there might be a little flaw in the middle of the photograph. And a bunch of guys got up on the roof, right?
Right.
See the interesting boots and coats and hats and beards, and yeah, some of the guys had neckties on. Boy, that's amazing. How would you have found it today? How would you have known where to go?
I don't know, just looked around and looked for
Do you think that's the right spot
I think so, because that's the only spot I could find that where it might have been.
where it matched it? Guess what? You won't find too many people to argue with you. And you didn't have a surveyor along to map out the territory. And I think you did a magnificent job to check that area out today. And it's hard to tell by looking at the tree line how accurate you might
Yeah.
be, but you did. Hey, did we do well? I gotta tell you, Ron, you are an amazing guy. How many more books do you have? We still haven't finished the first book, have we?
Oh, got a little bit left on that one.
The next chapter will be, folks, when we come back here on another week and another time. We've been making Tuesdays
Yeah, Tuesday.
our familiar spot here, but you're going to get into the 1940s,
Yeah.
right? And this was my childhood. Even though it wasn't spent in Plattsburgh in the 1940s, we would take the long trips from downstate New York all the way up to Clinton County. You know why we came here?
No?
To go to the religious camps. What camp meeting did we go to? Calvin knows, the Moors camp meeting, which is still being held today, isn't it?
Yep.
I haven't been to the Moors camp meeting in probably 50 years, but I can remember coming up here and in bad weather. I don't know why we would have come up in bad weather, but we got stranded here and had to stay with somebody whose name escapes me now, but I'll remember. Oh, Hollis Stevenson. He was a dentist here for many, many years, very much involved in I think the Wesleyan Methodist Church. And I think we stayed at their house one night because we couldn't get out of town. Maybe it wasn't bad. Maybe the car broke down. We used to take bets in the back seat as to how many times the car would break down going to Plattsburgh. And of course, during the war, when tires were impossible to buy, we'd take bets on how many flat tires we'd have on the way to the city. It was 20 miles to New York City from where we lived in Thornwood in Westchester County, and we would have 6 and 8 flat tires each way. And in those days, you know, you didn't have 20 spares because there weren't spares.
No.
You had to take the tire off and patch it. My father was a big man, very strong, and he had to be, because he would take the tire off whatever car we had back in those days. And we had an old Packard, and we had a Lincoln Zephyr, I recall. He would take the tire off, break the bead, which is no small task on those old 16 and 17-inch tires, get the tube out, find it, repair it, and blow it up with a hand pump and put it on the car. And he was very skillful at it. Probably got in very good shape. And when you'd get out of the car and take a break as your dad was changing the tire, you'd look around, you know what you'd see? Other people up and down the road doing the same thing. A lot of people simply didn't travel during that time because it was too expensive to get anywhere. My dad had to because he had missions. He preached in mission churches in Harlem and Chinatown and around New York City, so he had to make frequent trips into the city, and he had to do what he did. And he did it very, very well. When we get into the 1940s, and now you're really whetting my appetite because I haven't seen much of this stuff, you have a page of ration stamps.
Yeah.
I can remember tokens and ration stamps and ration books. I can remember opening a book and it said, Gordon Little, age whatever, weight 97 pounds. Huh? You always wanted to be the 97-pound weakling I was. I must have been 4 years old. I had no idea. But my mother saved those, and somewhere in a drawer in my house, I've got the old ration book with my name in it.
I got some gas ration cards.
The gas ration
for
card.
gasoline.
See, my dad was a minister, and he took advantage of every opportunity to use that status to get whatever he could. He was also an air raid warden, as I've said on this program, and for those of our younger viewers who don't know what that was all about, our country was in danger of being attacked by foreign forces. There were submarines spotted off the shores of Long Island.
Yeah.
There was a thing called espionage. Now we call it terrorism. Same difference going on in those days. So we had air raids.
Yeah.
As little kids, we learned to be plane spotters, right, for for the Civil Air Patrol, was it? And we'd get these books with pictures of planes, and for so many hours a week, we'd go on top of the school or somewhere and look for planes and write down everything we saw. And as an air raid warden, my dad would go out in the community and make sure that people had all their blinds down and lights off. But also, as I said, he took advantage of all the free meals he could get, number one. He taught me everything I know about eating by always going to people's houses at that time. And he would always, because he was a minister and had to minister to people, he'd have a little extra gas coupons, you know, and he'd have a little extra sugar coupons. And so that worked out pretty well for us at my house, as I recall. What other stuff can we look forward to in that chapter without opening the book?
Oh,
You got to do this from memory now.
I got the 40s, and I got the old barracks. You know, where the buildings used to look, and then the way they look like now. I got that in there. Then the other book covers Plattsburgh residences, like homes, different streets.
Oh, I forgot. We didn't do that yet.
Yeah, Plattsburgh from the 50s to the 90s. It covers that area. Then there's miscellaneous villages at different towns. Another one covers miscellaneous bridges that used to be there, and they're gone. Then I got towards the back. I got the ice storm when we had the ice storm in 1998, and went and reshot the streets now to see how much difference with all the trees gone.
Oh, that's sad, isn't it sad?
Yeah. And I got another book covers the Lozier Car Company. And
That's a good one. We're going to love that when we get into that.
And I did another book just covers the base, but just the buildings on the old base, the way they look like now. So,
That's terrific. So I wonder how many programs more we got. Maybe 3, 4, 5 more programs just on the pictures, folks.
yes.
And then we're going to get into all the other aspects of this amazing man's life. His ability to look at something, draw a few plans, and then build it from scraps,
Yeah, just-
metal, plastic, wood, and not just to build a model. We've all built models, and I would be embarrassed to even admit that I built models because there's certainly nothing like you. You talk about the 1940s. We used to be able to order models through a cereal company
Yeah.
with an advertisement on the back of a Wheaties or something. And we'd have, or you could cut out an airplane,
Yeah.
cardboard plane. It would be the back of the box, and
Yeah.
you tape a penny on the nose for balance or somewhere else and throw it off the side of the hill.
Yeah.
But your modeling started as a pretty young guy. When's
Yeah, I
the
was
first
gonna-
one you ever built? Well, how old were you?
I don't know, about 6 or 7. I don't know exactly.
Really?
Just got interested in that, and then I kind of got more involved, like doing like customizing cars and like that, and then started scrap building my own parts for cars, and then later on I got into trucks. But then the trucks that they sell, it wasn't what I wanted, so I had to buy the truck and scrap build the whole back ends. Back then they didn't have plastics; you had to use wood. So you use balsa wood to make your dump boxes and plows and like that. But then when I found out I could get sheets of plastic, I could make it out of plastic instead. So I started building like trucks, snow plows and telephone trucks.
Hey, you see, I had seen the World War II models. I had seen the Plattsburgh Traction Company trolley cars. I had seen the trains. But then he didn't even know I was going to walk in that room today. And of course, I walked in that room, which our viewers haven't seen, and I saw a snowplow.
Yeah.
And you know, our son Dale has worked for DOT for a long time and drove one of those huge plows. And I just horrified when I sat up in the seat of it because they're so big.
Yeah.
And you know, little kids, and even people who wish they were little kids like me, are fascinated by big equipment.
Yeah.
And so when I saw your model, that's amazing. And then he shows me another model of a Bell telephone truck. And what was that behind with the log on it?
That's a Timber King sawmill. It's a portable bandsaw sawmill.
Right down to the little jacks on the side of the trailer.
I just built it this year. So
Did you really?
Yeah, I built 2. Because I built one for a guy in Keysville when I was at the Clinton County Fairgrounds. I was showing like pictures, like stuff that I built. Because I even built a mobile car crusher for George Moore, and like that.
From George Moore Trucking?
Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Come on. And you certainly, I was going to ask you if you've saved all your models. You haven't, because other people own them now, some
Yeah.
of the stuff.
Yeah. Cars I keep, I got them all in boxes. I built like D&H trucks. you know, the cranes and.
Are you ready for this, Calvin?
Stuff like that.
You better buy another case of videotape. Because this is a fascinating guy, and it's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
And if we hadn't been here today, your story may never be told adequately. That's why it's such a great pleasure for us to be a part of it. And we thank you for allowing us to
Yeah.
come into your life
That's okay.
and into your home.
Yeah,
And your mother was here this morning, but she left to go bowling. She
Yeah.
does her Tuesday bowling.
yeah,
And so we'll get her bowling score and tease her about that the next time
Yeah.
we come along. I don't know. I'm sure there are many other topics that you're interested in that we haven't even touched on. But we will. Because if we're nothing else, we're persistent. And we know the mother lode when we find it. We know there is a gold mine right here at the Ron Venne residence at 72 Bailey Avenue in Plattsburgh. And we're not going to finish until we've taken out the last golden nugget. Who knows where we're going to be next time if it's not here on our program called Our Little Corner.